Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Join me on the first and third Thursdays on the Dr. Diane Show, where I have experts from around the country teaching you cutting-edge therapies on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. Please like and subscribe to my channel, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am excited today to have with me as my guest Tom Shepard. He is a certified financial planner professional, an accredited portfolio management advisor, and the founder of Shepard Financial and the Currency Institute. With nearly 30 years in the world of finance, Tom has built his career on a mission to transform the way individuals and organizations think about money. His work integrates wealth management, personal growth, holistic wellness, and financial empowerment to help people align their resources with their values. As an author and thought leader, Tom published Money Isn't Everything, Everything is Money, a personalized approach to valuing time, energy, relationships, and money. The book is built on his original Find Your Financial Nature tool, which helps people discover how they are hardwired to interact with money. Beyond finance, Tom is an avid lacrosse player and outdoor adventurer, and when he's not driving off-road vehicles in Moab or fixing up his rustic cabin in the Maine woods, he lives with his family in Cumberland, Maine. Welcome, Tom. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for the
Awesome.
introduction.
I love Moab. I've been out there hiking. That and Sedona are like two of my favorite places.
hmm
Awesome.
No,
So you are definitely a different breed of financial advisor, that's for sure. We have worked together before. You've done a couple workshops for my communities and things, and I just love your mindset and just the way you help people reframe the way they think about money and investment and all that kind of stuff. So maybe just give us a little insight into that background. Like how did that come to be with you, kind of being so different from your typical financial planner or advisor?
so um, my path into finance was a little, go left, then come back right. I'd always had an interest in money, but my dad was an engineer, so I went to school for engineering and graduated, worked for Pratt and Whitney down in Connecticut. Jet engines aren't really what I was vibing
Passionate
on.
about?
I actually wanted to work with people more. Um, so after Gulf War One, I got laid off, and that was an opportunity to go back and talk to I was a lacrosse coach at Trinity College, which liberal arts. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they were like, well, we're going to law school or going to Wall Street or Madison Avenue, or some of them were going to go work at a boarding school. And so I thought, I'm a young guy, I can take a risk. So I decided that I was going to teach and coach at a boarding school. And the only job I got was offered up in the foothills of central Maine. It was a place called Kent's Hill School. And I went from making 30 grand to six.
No,
But it's
jeez.
not always what you make, it's what you
Yeah,
keep.
right.
And because the dining hall was free, room and board was free, and we were in the middle of nowhere, so there wasn't any place to spend any money. um,
True.
I realized I saved more money making 6 grand than I did when I was living in West Hartford making 30.
Hmm.
Um, and so this was just another example of how um, the traditional route to doing well is not always to follow in your father's footsteps. So when I told my parents what I was doing, they're like, "What are you, crazy?" Um, because they'd endorsed every other decision I'd made up to that point. But this one, didn't compute for them. Um, and so then I was teaching math, and I was teaching high school kids that math is real and using money to do it. Um, and they said, you should talk to our parents. And so I thought that would be a pretty decent career. So I went from teaching, I moved to Boston, got into financial services. And when I was training young advisors, how to talk to people about money, there was one day where we just sort of broke it down and said, why are you invited in? You're 25. Why are you invited into a 50-year-old's house to talk to them about money? Like, you don't
How does
have
that happen?
you don't have life experience.
Yeah.
You don't have wisdom. And so we were trying to come up with a way to understand money that was um, more real for people who really didn't have much of an interest in it. And so this was the very first time I started to use my engineering mind to break down what money is and how it means different things to different people. Because sometimes you're sitting at a kitchen table with a couple who are disagreeing about money, so it's about relationship. Sometimes you're at the kitchen table and they've got kids running around and they barely have the attention to put it on you. And so their interest is really about being a parent and raising kids. They don't have the energy or time to deal with their money. And so that's why you're there. It's time or energy. Um, so it's not always about the money. And those were the foundational elements of this entire approach that I take, was recognizing that it's time that we trade at work, which is energy invested at work, to get money so we can come home and buy the kind of relationship we want to have with life.
Mhm.
And we might prefer one of those. Like, we might be a time bandit. Like, we got a day timer and we're filling it all in, right? But we don't track our money. Or we might be into working out and getting strong, and um, but we have, a tendency to burn ourselves out and injure ourselves because we run marathon after marathon and we only train in a very specific way. But since we're doing that, we're not really looking at our money. We're just we're expending um, time and energy in a certain way, and it might be working for us, it might not. And then I was a financial advisor, and my wife was a personal trainer, and we were sharing notes. And we realized that she does the same thing for her clients that I do for mine, which is cross train them, right? Cross
Yeah.
train them. Don't just run in a straight line. Do some core work, do some lateral movements, work on this stabilizers. And in our field, we do the same thing. It's like, don't just put money in a retirement account and just think that it's going to work for you in the long run. This thing, it's a long race. Just go, 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 do that, do that, do that. No, build in a little bit of variety and it becomes a much spicier life for you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I
So,
love the analogies, right? I know so many people, myself included, who have that planner and we track time like down to the minute. Like, I even have booked, when am I going to go to the gym?
mhm.
But we don't track our money that way. Like, we aren't looking at, you can be so disciplined in one area and just not in another.
I love the word discipline, because discipline is one way to think that you're wired to accomplish something.
Mhm.
Another way is motivated,
Right.
creative, right? And then there's a third way, which I call um, the motivation to be disciplined. So it's discipline, motivation, or the motivation to be disciplined. And what works the best is if we can figure out how to tap into all three. So, you think about people who join the military, they might really like regimentation, but they're not that creative and they like being told what to do. But the reason you're on this planet is so that during your lifetime, if that's how you started out, you might learn to be creative. You might learn how to get motivated to be disciplined in an entirely different way than you were initially, um, finding happiness or satisfaction.
Yeah. How has the way people feel about money changed over the 20 years or so that you've been doing this work?
When I first started in this business, it was actually 30 years ago. You're so kind. Um, when I first started in this business, there were not as many tools, right? So, um, a lot of the things that people are wrestling with, the complexity, the number of options, are now so overwhelming. Um, when I first started in the business, a 401k could take $10,000 max. Like that's the most you could get into it. It's now over 30. There was no such thing as a Roth IRA or a 529 plan. There were no health savings accounts. Um, so our tagline is evolve with your money.
Mhm.
And what it means is your money's going to evolve. So you should work hard to try and evolve with it. Um, when I first got into this business, there was no Bitcoin.
I was just going to say that
There,
as you were talking about evolve. I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
Bitcoin.
there was no cryptocurrency. Um, there's just so much evolution and creativity, and tax structural changes, that have, um, been both positive and negative for the markets and for creating wealth. And so staying on top of that, if that's not your favorite currency, if you'd much rather have a relationship with your spouse and your kids and your friends and go do stuff and go on vacations, um, we're here to make sure that you're staying on top of this currency that you'd like to ignore and at least putting it in front of you often enough to make 5 or 6 decisions every year that compound on each other over a really long time frame to create so much more wealth that you can then trade in for the time savings
Things.
and the
Yeah.
relationship stuff
Yeah.
and the health.
I love it. I love it. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will explore more with Tom Shepard, certified financial planner. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or at either of my 2 publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about my guest, Tom Shepard, at his website, which is www.shepard-financial.com. That's spelled SHEPARD-FINANCIAL.com. So before we broke, we were just talking about how things have changed, in the last 20 or 30 years in terms of how people can save and where, what they can do with their money and where they can put it and all that kind of stuff. But I think one of the things that I think is the most interesting, or at least attracted, me to you, was just your mindset around financial nature and how your personality actually plays a role in in your relationship with money. So you've identified something called the 7 financial natures. Do you want to walk us through that?
Sure. Um, when I had 2 little girls who came out so different,
Yeah.
different energy, I was also working with advisors. And so one day I was, kind of pretending to be a teacher again, and I was standing at a blackboard or a dry erase board or whatever. And I was like, I wonder how many relationships with money there are. And so I just started drawing little graphs. And out of that graphical display that I drew for myself, I'm like, okay, well, what would I call these things? Because I ended up with 7 different relationships with money. And what would I call them so that people could relate to them? Not with, um, intellectually complicated verbiage, but like just salt of the earth. Let's name these things. All right. So there are 7 ways that I found people are wired to approach money. And one way is they like to spend it. Like that's first and foremost. One of my daughters is a spender, but she's good at it. Another relationship is saver. My other daughter is a saver, and she doesn't like to spend her money. She likes to save her money. She'll spend my money,
Of course.
right? Right? She'll
All day
spend my
long.
money. Um, but very different approaches to money. A third one is earner. Like some people really like to earn money. We hear about people who are workaholics, right?
Mhm.
So they like to earn money. And then there's invest or investor, lever, leverage. That's like borrowing money, trying to do more, using a system to create more impact. Giver, and then taker. So spender, earner, saver, investor, lever, giver, taker. And it turns out there's an order to the way money's supposed to flow. But if you are of a certain nature, it gets to your nature for you, and then you want it to be about that. So if I'm an earner, I want it to be about earning. And so earners have a tendency to go after money in a way that's satisfying, right? Satisfaction is their happy word. Savers, they want to build up a nest and align it and make it comfortable and relaxing. And that's their happy word, is like comfort and relaxation. Investors want to grow it. They want to produce more. And when they see it producing more, that's enjoyable. They really enjoy seeing the money grow and become more. Levers, they prefer ease. And the easiest thing to do is to borrow more and more and more money to do more and more and more things. And so every nature has a dark side. What
Right.
would the dark side of a giver be? Someone who's so generous that they become a martyr and then they resent everybody because everybody knows they're so generous and they keep coming at them with all of these requests, right? Then there's the taker. The takers, they're not happy unless life is exciting, right? These are the people that put on a squirrel suit and jump off a mountain, um, risking it all. Then there's the spenders. Spenders, they like taking some risk, but it's more constrained. We call it fun, right?
Hmm.
So it's fun. So these different natures are a way to identify how people talk to themselves in their head. And that's what our assessment does, is it helps people like choose amongst different um, answers in a 7-question survey that will show them their dominant way of thinking about trading time and energy to get money to buy the kind of relationship you want with life. So it's it's a currency exchange that leads you to pursue life a certain way, and you're always coming at this exchange trying to create happiness for yourself. But what happens if we chew a piece of gum? What happens when we chew a piece of gum? It loses its flavor.
Hmm.
What happens when we put in another piece? You get a little bit more flavor, but eventually you got a mouthful of gum and you're not having a different experience.
Right.
Then, um, so if all we ever do is do exciting things, we'll probably end up dead. If all we ever do is go to work and become a workaholic, we'll probably end up dead. If all we ever do is borrow, 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 and over borrow, then we'll end up bankrupt and maybe someday stressed out and dead. So if we want to live a vibrant, healthy, wellness focused life, then we need to have all seven of these relationships happening to some degree. We're never going to we're never going to change who we are, but we can become a bigger, better version of who we are by folding in these things that come naturally to other people as second natures, third natures, fourth natures. Um, and so when I stood back and I looked at the seven natures, and I was doing yoga at the time, and I'd had my own panic attack. And so I was in some mode of recovery, seeing an acupuncturist and a chiropractor. All of a sudden, I'm like, holy cow, like, chiropractors do the same thing. They're trying to remove subluxations that are blocking the flow of energy. Acupuncturists are doing the same thing. They're trying to put needles in you to unlock the flow of energy. And we do the same thing with finances is we make a tweak here and a tweak there, and pretty soon the flow of energy and money in your life is just more aligned with the person you're trying to become. So the tagline evolve with your money is literally like use your genetics to figure out the order of things so that you can align with it and become the best possible version of yourself.
I love it. How can someone find out what their financial nature is? You have an assessment. Is it on your website?
Yeah, if you go to our website, there's a resources tab, and under the resources tab, there's find your financial nature. We also have another website called Currency Camp. And at currencycamp.com, you can also find your financial nature, but you can also click on, buy a book, enroll in some, free programming. So that's a resource as well.
Okay, awesome. So what happens when someone recognizes their financial nature? I would imagine that's pretty life-changing for some people.
There's there's uh there's seven natures, there's three motivations. So I'm sharing this because there's one of the motivations that makes it take longer to have the epiphany, right? So if I'm a protector and I find out that I'm a saver too, like that's why I have so much desire to put money in a savings account is because it's protecting me and I'm a saver. A pursuer who's an investor would rub that person potentially the wrong way, right? Because the investor's like, why do you have it in savings? You should put it in an investment and have it make money for you. And I'm pursuing investments but then there's this other motivation, and it's the manager. And the manager is the one who's looking at the pros and the cons and trying to time the market, have it in the bank when that makes sense, put it in the market when that makes sense. But they never like commit to one or the other because they're always trying to leave their options open. And managers are the folks most susceptible to like analysis paralysis. And if life is not measured in time, but instead it's measured by the series or numbers of decisions you make to move in a certain direction, protectors don't make decisions, managers take a long time to make a decision, and pursuers probably decide too quickly.
Right.
So in all of this, there's no like, I'm better than you are. It's like, no, who are you? And for us, that's where it all starts. Who are you? Where are you? Where do you want to go? What's the order that you need to do some things to get it flowing in that direction? And let's align it with, the best possible version of yourself.
Yeah, and I would imagine things change as your life changes, like
Mhm.
depending on what time of life you're in. If
Right.
you're, like 25 to 35, or if you're 50 to 60, or, 70 or whatever, like these things, can you become, can you switch from different natures almost?
So what you're describing are stages of life. right?
Mhm.
And one of the biggest tragedies and how have things changed in the last 30 years? 30 years ago, high school students weren't worried about starting a 401k. College grads weren't encouraged to start building a retirement nest egg. We were allowed to live within the stage that we were in and find our way to the next stage.
Right.
And so a big part of what we do is not just who are you, how are you wired, what's your nature, what's your motivation, what's your favorite currency, but what stage of life are you in? And how can we embrace that stage of life and create a plan that helps move you in the direction of the next stage, but doesn't get swallowed up by trying to do what 50-year-olds are doing when you're 25.
Right.
Um, let's engage in age appropriate financial planning.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love it because things do change. I mean, your mindset's change. I know for myself, I'm completely different in terms of how I am with my money now
Mhm.
in my late 50s than I was when I was maybe even 10 years ago, but certainly like 20, 30, 40 or all that.
Right.
So I love this. We're going to get into a lot more. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be talking more with Tom Shepard when we come back. Stay tuned. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today with Tom Shepard, and his website is www.shepard-financial.com. That's spelled SHEPARD-FINANCIAL.com. And we were just talking about the different financial natures and how things change as we evolve as people, and we can become one and shift into another depending on what stage of life we're in. But you also teach us that money is only one of four currencies that we spend every day.
Mhm.
So what are the other three?
Time,
Yep.
energy, good health is energy. So we value health, we value time, we value relationships. Words and communication is the is like the coinage of good relationships. Um, the reason that your relationship with money is so fundamental for us is because it's the most visible of the four currencies. Like you can write down your income, your expenses, your assets, your liabilities. You can look at your tax return. You can get a good sense for what the pattern is for how you do life. And out of that pattern, you talk to yourself. Like I don't wake up at 3:30 in the morning stressed out about math. That's not what's going on in my head. It's it's a story, it's a dialogue, it's words. And so if you understand how you talk to yourself and you have a language for this relationship you have with money, it turns out you have the same relationship with how you trade time, how you trade energy, and how you trade words. So it's the most powerful mechanism for understanding how you are trying to thrive in this thing called life and flourish. And so the very first thing we ask people to do once they're starting to get to know us um, is let's look at this assessment as a tool that helps us not re-traumatize you, right? If I ask you to tell me all your money stories and you got 40 or 50 years worth of stories, it's going to take us a long time to get that out. And you might feel shame or guilt, or you might have
Oh yeah, there's
feelings
a lot
about
of
it.
that around money, right? Like
Right, right.
it's like this
So,
taboo subject.
right. So we don't have to go there. Let's just try to use this set. It's 7 questions. It takes 2 minutes. Let's do this quick little assessment, and that'll start to inform us as to who you are as it relates to money. Now, some of the questions aren't even about money. They are about time management or even food. Like, what's your favorite snack? um, we've been able to like correlate really cool things with these natures that are within those other currency realms. So this really gives us some insight. So that's where it starts. But our process is: who are you? Where are you? Let's get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper. Where do you want to go? What kind of goals do you have? What are your dreams? What are your aspirations? What do you want? So much of financial advice is about sacrifice and discipline and, live within your means, settle for what you need. Don't be so selfish and like, you know what a need is? Wanting stuff. Like if you try to not want stuff, eventually you're just going to want more stuff.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
go on a starvation diet and then watch how bad it is at the end.
It's so true. I think like as we're just talking about this, I'm thinking about myself, people I know,
Mhm,
and there's often kind of this gap between what people say they want
mhm.
and what their financial statements actually show.
Right.
Or like what their ability to change the position they're in, whether it be because they want to buy something or they just want it, they want more for retirement or whatever those things are. How do you work with that? Like I'm just thinking like people say, oh, I want to save money for this, but then they're going out to eat every weekend, or they're spending it on something else, or they've got the coffee, the Starbucks everywhere. Like, how do you get people into that mindset without it feeling like I have to make all these sacrifices?
But the very first thing we do is we let people understand there's only two ways you make decisions, consciously or unconsciously. And if you don't know how you're making decisions, then it's unconscious.
Mhm.
If you know your financial nature and you see that there's a pattern and that there's an order to how to go from here to there, you can start to become more conscious about the decisions that you're making. I had a woman who approached me and she said, "You got to help me stop spending so much money on shoes." She lived in Manhattan. She was working for a fashion organization. Like this was her guilty pleasure, right? So we sat down with her and we said, "Where are you?" And she gave us her data. We did the assessment. So I know who she is, I know where she is. I said, "Where do you want to go? I know you want to stop spending money on shoes, but we don't, if you don't want to ski into the trees, don't look at the trees. Like let's look at what you want in your life." So she made a list of things she wanted to do. I said, "Great, for the next 3 months, go do all the things that are on your want list and then report back to me. You can spend more than you did be ever before. But for the next 3 months, just give in to the things that you want to do." 3 months later, she came back. I said, "Great. Did you spend more money?" She's like, "No." I said, "If you did all these things, where did the money come from?" She's like, "I didn't buy any shoes."
Of course.
You know, it's like it was a guilty pleasure. It was a lack of imagination. It was her unconscious way of dealing with stress and anxiety in life. And so when we can figure out who we are, where we want to go, and sometimes even important to this whole thing is with whom, right?
Hmm.
And how are they wired? Where are they at? Where do they want to go? Are we trying to go to the same place? That's where this gets really powerful is when you're dealing with couples. And couples can be siblings, it can be husband and wife, it can be business partners. It's really, really powerful to understand who am I? How do I think? What's the order that I normally would do things in? And how does that create a distortion field around me that keeps me trapped in this room that I feel is comfortable but stifling?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think we make a lot of unconscious decisions, right? Like we
Mhm.
do something because it's what we always do, like we go out to dinner every Saturday night because that's what we do, or
Right.
we buy these things because that's what we do. Or even with when you were giving the shoe example, and she told me she lived in Manhattan, I'm thinking to myself, how can she not? She probably walks by a shoe store every 2 minutes. Like it's
Right,
right there, like in your face
right.
all the time. So speaking of, just becoming more aware of what drives us and our thoughts and that kind of thing, what do you think is the single most powerful habit shift that you see in people who genuinely really do transform their relationship with money?
The most important um, thing that takes somebody from what they've been doing uh, to being open to doing it differently has to do with, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready? Um, and I think a lot of times people have to endure something embarrassing or endure some pain or get through an experience in life where they say, I don't want to do that again. For Dave Ramsey, it was, I don't ever want to have to file bankruptcy again. He was a lever. He was trying to borrow, and it blew up. And so he's gone to the other extreme, and he now says that all debt is evil. So we
Right.
don't we don't want to we don't want to overdo it, but to experience something very negative. Suze Orman was in the money financial business, and she sold annuities to everybody, and now she's like, annuities are evil. Jack Bogle created index investing, and on his deathbed, he's like, I might have created a Frankenstein monster with this thing called index investing, low cost. So the most important thing to realize is, who am I? But it's also important to understand sort of the mindset and the game that financial gurus or other professionals are trying to sell you. And if you're not conscious of it, then you might be unconsciously taken in by some of their advice. And it might even be good advice. It's just not age appropriate, life stage appropriate. It's not appropriate for what you enjoy about um, the currencies and how to put these four currencies together, trading time and energy to get money to build the kind of life you want. You got to be careful, like who you're walking with and who you're following. Self leadership is the safest way I know to install a new paradigm and a new program into yourself that will support you as you turn toward becoming a better version of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. That's so funny that you mentioned Dave Ramsey. I have a friend who like follows him religiously, like down to I mean, this guy doesn't have a credit card. He's like nothing. And he just turned 60. And we were like, oh my God. I mean, okay, we get all of the principles that he's teaching. And yes, I
Mm.
suppose if you have a problem, like you can't control yourself with certain things, then yeah, you might want to be that extreme. But look at all the flight miles you're missing.
There
They could
was one.
save you money.
There was one young man I was working with. He was in his late 20s or early 30s, and he was in the process of getting a divorce. And we were chatting, and it became very, very clear that his conscious decision to let Dave Ramsey's process of thinking become his thing, that was leading to the divorce. His wife said to him, she's like, I didn't marry Dave Ramsey. I
Yeah.
married you. What do you think? Like, but he didn't know. And so you can think you're thinking conscious thoughts, but it might be somebody else's entire script for you. And then you're not living your life, you're not authentic, and the people in your life see that you're not authentic and they don't really want to be around you.
Yeah, it is so true. It's almost like people. I feel like a lot of people don't want to think for themselves. They want somebody else to think for them and make the decisions for them.
There's a great song by the Fleet Foxes, and there's a line in it where like, maybe I would just like to be a cog in somebody else's machine. And I'm like, yeah, that's a choice. Is it a conscious choice or is it an unconscious choice? That's really the question.
Right. Yeah, no, totally, totally. And I get it if you've, had trouble with credit cards, let's say, or things like that. Sometimes it's almost like you got to go cold turkey from something to be able to control that impulse, let's say. But at the same time, it's almost like, well, what are you really learning then? I mean, are you really, have you really modified your behavior? Or maybe that, even if we could call it like an addiction, is going to show up somewhere else in some other area. So it's really more about, okay, let's analyze and look at why do I have this need or desire or whatever and kind of get behind that. So
Right.
I love it. We're going to talk about a lot more. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we'll be exploring more with Tom Shepard, certified financial planner. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. You can learn more about me at www.drdianeHayden.com. And you can learn more about my guest today, Tom Shepard, at his website, which is www.shepard-financial.com. And that's spelled SHEPARD-FINANCIAL.com. So, one of the things we were just talking about is just people who kind of have to quit things cold turkey and, just the whole, when I hear that, I'm like, well, you can do that, but then are you going to shift this issue or addiction or whatever it might be to some other area of your life? And have you really gotten down underneath trying to become more aware of what is it that's causing you to charge things on your credit card all the time or buy the shoes, the millions of pairs of shoes or whatever it was that people have. So, and when we were on break, you were telling me you had a funny story you want to share with people about that.
Yeah, I mean, when we live in the great state of Maine, and our state flag has the white pine tree on it. And if you look at a white pine tree, you step back and you see where all the growth is happening. It's way at the top. It's like reaching for the sun. And at the bottom, it's got like stuff is just falling off. It's falling away. And so I've always thought of that as a great visual description of how our habits that aren't good for us can just fall away. But instead, a lot of like programs that are designed to try and help us quit something have us even look more intently at it. So like with Weight Watchers, it's count your calories. So you're literally every second
So
of
you're
every
obsessed
day,
with it.
you're obsessing about this thing. Alcoholics Anonymous, it's like, you can never ever drink ever again. Anyways, there was this guy who was trying to quit smoking, and he had enlisted all of his friends as a support group to help him stop smoking. And so every time they would see him, they would ask him, how's it going? Have you stopped smoking yet? And every time he saw him, he would have an urge to go have a cigarette. And eventually, he's like, this time, I'm just not going to tell anybody. And he got focused on other things. He didn't tell anybody. Nobody reminded him, and he quit smoking.
Mm-hmm.
In Peru, the language literally refers to the future as being behind you because they admit that the way they go through life is backwards. You walk backwards and it comes into view. And then it's in the rear view, but you're still facing it. And so if there's one thing that I try to get people to do is first know who you are, where you are, and then turn in the direction of where you actually want to go. Create a vision, set a goal, have it be out there. When you look back, it's to see how far you came, not to see where you came from. Um, and so, so that's part of this entire process that we take people through is um, a year after we started working with you, we're going to take a moment to look back and show you how far you came. But then the rest of the meeting is about where do you want to go? And that's where it gets really powerful. The other paradigm shift that um, I think is valuable is thinking in terms of lefts and rights instead of ups and downs, right? Because if
Mhm.
time's doing this and life's a series of ups and downs, then the downs feel depressing and the ups feel anxiety provoking. But if we just say it's left and right, we can shake hands with life again.
Yeah, yeah. So when people work with you, I think a
Mhm.
lot of people are very intimidated by, feeling like they need to know so much about investing. And, even earlier you were saying how many different things there are, how many different ways there are to invest now, like all different kinds of things. How do you make it so it's not so, uh, so it's not like you need a finance degree to kind of, make your way through this? How do you work with people to kind of make it more simple for them?
Everybody's an expert in something. And the thing that you are the closest to having 10,000 hours invested in is being an expert in you.
Right.
But if we can help you become more aware of how you operate and show you what you want to accomplish and what your favorite currency is and speak to you in that language. So if I'm speaking to a yoga instructor, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about energy. If I'm talking to a time management specialist, you know,
Yeah.
we're talking about a language that's built around trading time. And if we're talking to somebody who's like, a counselor, we're using relationship analogies. If we're
Mhm.
talking to a personal trainer, my friend David sent me a note today. He's like, "Yeah, help me with this, man, because I know everything there is to know about like training people to be strong and healthy and flexible and all that stuff." I said, "Yeah, well, strong is good and flexible is good, and there are terms within the financial world that are analogous." So you don't have to be intimidated by the vernacular because it can be translated. There's a Rosetta Stone. There's a way that we can speak to you um, using language that will then show you how easy it is to make a decision in one realm. If we were talking energy, you'd probably see that this is the right way to go, right? And yeah, okay. Well, that same sort of pattern is happening over here with your money.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I don't think people think about it like that at all.
Mhm.
Honestly. Yeah,
No,
it's like,
they think it's separate,
yeah.
but it's not. Nothing's separate. Everything's integrated. It's all one, and we're just, music has seven musical notes: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Do, if you want to call it an octave. So there's seven relationships with money. There's seven musical notes. There's seven colors in the rainbow. There's seven valence shells around a nucleus and an electron. Like we can talk physics, we can talk music, we can talk art, we can talk
Yeah,
any language you want, and you'll see there's a pattern that you can understand that you can then apply to your money, and you'll sleep better at night.
that's so true. So we just have a few minutes before we finish up. What's the most important thing someone can do today to begin a healthy relationship with money?
Go to our assessment.
Yeah.
Answer seven
I've done it. It's
questions.
amazing.
Answer answer seven questions. You'll get a description of what it's like to be you. And if you're a manager, take it a second time, a third time, or a fourth time.
That was me too. Yep.
However many times you need to take it in order to feel like the answer is right. We had one woman took it 7 times. She was a giver, got giver every single time. Even intentionally went to answer a question because the questions are not the same, every time you take it. If you answer something a little bit different, it might take you down a road and then bring you back. And but to me, it's take the assessment. But honestly, for most people who take the assessment, it's like a flash going off. You know, it blinds you with a moment of insight, and then you go back to being yourself. And so if you don't know what to make of the result that you got, reach out to us and we will help you begin to do the next piece. So it's who am I? This helps you figure out that piece. Then it's what's my motivation? That's your type. And then where are you? So what type of person are you? Where are you? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to go with? And is everybody on board? Is everybody happy to be in the car with you listening to your music? Or is there some dissension in the ranks?
Yeah, for sure. So they can go do that at your website, which is
Yeah.
www.shepard-financial.com. And is that the best way for people to get a hold of you too, or any other contact info for them?
Yeah, on our website it says, yeah, I'd like to meet with you, or ask us a question, or if you take the assessment, we're gonna have your email address and we're gonna reach out to you anyways. So
Right.
It's this is not rocket science unless you're a rocket scientist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I think it's so great what you're doing. And it's really helping people, just not feel so stressed out. I mean, we already have stress about money anyway, right? And so now
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, I don't want to work with a financial advisor or whatever. I'm telling anyone who's listening or watching this that Tom is amazing. I've done a lot of work with him. He's worked with a lot of our clients, and you really take all that stress away off the table, which, it's hard for people, I think, just to talk about finances and all that. So I love what you're doing. Keep it up for sure. And thank you so much for being on with us.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And we will see you back here next time. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.